Welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. The early chatters are in. On the YouTube side and on the Rockfin side, we are on. If you would like to join us on Rockfin, would love to see your chats and comments on Rockfin. I will check in with you all in a moment. Kuro Hikes, good comment. The easiest things that a person can do to help the climate, people are not willing to do. This is why I am a doomer. Yeah. I don't actually, I don't consider myself a doomer because I'm just, it's just not my personality type necessarily. I consider myself a realist. So it's hard for, I get it. We're all in the doomosphere and we're all doomers. But I consider myself a realist, but I'm just too, I guess I have an optimistic nature. So, though I know that doom is nigh, I do not let it invade my soul. Although, I'm very real about human beings. I'm very aware of the shortcoming of human beings to actually transcend our own problems, traumas, nature, etc. I also am aware that we can overcome problems, and we are getting better all the time at overcoming problems that used to be in the past, things that we thought humans could never rectify within themselves. Case in point, alcoholism or drug addiction was something that 100 years ago, a little over 100 years ago, people thought, people were trying to figure out how to get people to stop killing themselves with drugs and alcohol. And it was deemed pretty much incurable, right? There were all kinds of wild ideas about how to cure it. Medicines, treatments, jail, insane asylums, all kinds of stuff. And through, just people trying to continue to develop a way to deal with this problem, and even more so now with people being open about more open about the problem and more able to communicate about the problem. So I think that one of the things that helps alcoholics and drug addicts get over their addictions is one of the things that helps them is camaraderie, right? A commonness with other addicts and alcoholics, right? So when I was struggling with my addiction, it was the realization that other people had the same struggle and had overcome it that helped me kind of squeak through the pipe, if you will, squeak through the rocks that I was thrashing myself upon in order to find my way to the other side. So, that does shine a little light onto the fact that, there is a possibility that humans can better themselves or find ways past problems that they thought were insurmountable. We do have the ability for insight and reflection and transcendence. We have the ability for transcendence. Do we have it on a massive scale? Do we have it on a scale that the majority of the human beings on the planet can access and achieve? I'm not hopeful, but we have proven able to do that. So it's just the optimist in me is just coming through a little bit right now. But I still, if I was going to put a percentage on my belief that humans could overcome their massive problems and also overcome the massive propaganda and also overcome the massive brainwashing and the indoctrination of living the way that we live in the society that we live in. If I was going to put a percentage on my belief that we could overcome those problems, I would put that percentage as very, very low, probably on the maybe at a 5 or maybe even 10 if I'm being generous percent possibility that we could overcome those problems as a society. But I see that there is a possibility. But I just, Jacob Gordon, humans suck. I feel more for our fellow non-human earthlings. And I'm with you on that, actually. Even as I say all of this, even as I just said that little opening statement, I'm becoming more and more disillusioned in humans every day on many levels. So there's a lot of disillusionment in the human experiment for me. That's why 90 or 95%. That's why I'm at 90 or 95% belief that humans will not overcome their problems and will succumb to their own idiocy. So there you go. Ouch, interglacial optimist. That doesn't sound pleasant at all. No, thank you. I don't. I don't think that's that's not the cure. It's a horrible cure, actually. I think the cure is to control yourself. And do humans do that very well? Mostly not. Kuro, we have never been successful in not destroying anything. Mostly. Interglacial optimist Carl Sagan says less than 1% over the next 100 years. Sure. And maybe that's more realist than my percentage. $989 Big Boss. Oh, disillusionment is like obtaining nirvana. Nice. Nice. Let's get into it. Well, let's get into some discussion around let's get into some discussion around electric cars and renewables today. Main thrust of this discussion. This from Climate Watcher. Total embedded CO2 for making of a gasoline-powered car is 5.6 tons. By contrast, it takes 8.8 tons to make an EV. Battery accounts for nearly half of that. So, again, and ask the question: is your electric car really green? Is it really green? And I was just speaking on this. Maybe yesterday, or maybe every day, maybe every single day. But I was just bringing up the point that Lord Hugh had said long ago, that if we refashioned our entire economy around renewable energy, it would actually cause a massive increase in CO2 emissions. Right? Oh, we got to build all these electric cars. We must build all these electric cars in order to get down to net zero. But wait, it actually takes more emissions to build an EV. So if we build, a billion electric cars over the next decade, we ain't going to build that with renewable energy. I'm going to tell you that much. Renewable energy might take down this number a little bit, but let's say it takes it down all the way to the amount of carbon or CO2 that it takes to build a regular car. And I'm telling you right now, it probably won't. But let's say it does. You're still emitting, you're still building a billion more cars. Yeah. So let's look into this. This is from Alternatives Journal, Canada's environmental voice. Hold on one second. I'm going to check in with the Rockfinners. I see Cornholio. What's up, Cornholio? How you doing? Long time no hear. Got a couple viewers on Rockfin. Thanks for joining, Cornholio. Oh, let's get back to it. Sorry, didn't mean to do that. For years now, Greens have touted electric cars as a cardinal solution to the world's problems. Electric vehicles would not only lower carbon emissions, but also make our cities quieter and cleaner places. But hardcore science has always had some trouble with this pleasant illusion, given all the energy and materials needed to make an electric car in the first place. Several recent studies have added another obvious qualifier. Electric vehicles can only make a difference on the carbon front if they are powered by low carbon electricity over their lifetime. And that turns out to be a rare commodity in many places. Let's begin with manufacturing emissions, because that's where electric cars have a big problem. It simply takes about twice as much energy to make an electric car as it does a gas-powered one on a per kilometer basis. And that's because electric cars have battery issues and lower lifetime mileage. Cold weather is a killer for electric batteries. Did you know that? Did you know? In fact, the total embedded CO2 for the making of a gasoline-powered car is 5.6 tons. By contrast, it takes 8.8 tons to make an electric vehicle, and the battery accounts for nearly half of that. And I know, one of the arguments might be, well, it's always improving. Technology is always improving. And that's true. That's true. But how many emissions are we going to put into the atmosphere in the process of evolving or improving our technology? How long is it going to take for the technology to get there? And how long do we have to pump out, ever more emissions in this quest for renewable energy? Not saying it's all bad. I'm not saying that all renewable energy is bad. I'm just saying on a mass production scale, everybody must have their own electric vehicle, or maybe 2 or 3 scale, it's bad, bad, bad. Bad news. In fact, the total embedded CO2 for making, I read that, so electric vehicles arrive on the street with a higher carbon footprint even before you plug them in. And that footprint gets uglier if the electricity comes from coal-fired power. A clever British study on electric vehicles captured the nuances with an apt title, Shades of Green. In 2013, the report concluded that electric vehicles juiced by coal-fired generation had 4 times the carbon emissions of vehicles fueled by low-carbon electricity such as hydro dams, geothermal, and nuclear power. As a consequence, Paraguay, Iceland, Sweden, and Brazil topped the list as the greenest and most sensible places on Earth to drive an electric car. So low carbon electricity is hydro dams, geothermal, and nuclear power. But we're also not including the carbon emissions in building nuclear plants and also the dangers of nuclear power. We're not including the damage that hydro does to environments, massive damage. And also the emissions to build the hydro. So we're not including that either. So there's still a lot of offshoring or externalizing of emissions. Even here. As a consequence, in contrast, coal-fired India, South Africa, Australia, Indonesia, and China ranked as the worst possible countries to champion electric vehicles. Thanks to coal emissions, driving an electric car in these places was just as polluting or more so than owning a gas guzzler. The British study also found that 10 countries with the lowest emissions for electric cars largely depended on hydroelectricity. The select list included the Congo, Norway, Nepal, Mozambique, and yes, Tajikistan. Dams, of course, have their own ecological cost, which is massive, massive ecological cost. A new 2015 study by Christopher Kennedy, a University of Toronto civil engineer, highlighted just why low-carbon electricity matters so much. Kennedy calculated that electric cars, high-speed rail, and geothermal heating all come to naught unless the electricity powering those green items falls way below a threshold of 600 tons of CO2 for every gigawatt hour of electricity generated. 600 is an important number because at that threshold, electric and gasoline-powered cars have equivalent life cycle carbon emissions and remain climate disasters. Only 4 Canadian provinces, British Columbia, Manitoba, Ontario, and Quebec, have beat that target. Their hydro and nuclear power delivers electrons to the grid at an amazing 20 tons of CO2 produced for every gigawatt hour. But coal-fired Alberta and Saskatchewan are another story. Their juice comes with a dirty footprint of 750 tons or greater. To date, the research supports a few clear conclusions. Electric cars aren't a panacea or even a standalone technology for carbon reduction, but when paired with low carbon sources of gigawatts, electric vehicles can make a significant difference in some parts of the world. In other words, public policy that adds more green power to the grid and removes cars of any kind from the street is probably the way to go. I like the last part, removes cars of any kind from the street. That's the part that we should concentrate on. Bicycles or no cargo areas. And to be fair, wow. Let's look at this. Quickly checking in with my Rockfinners. What's up? Jacob Gordon, Urban Hermit. What's up, guys? We got a few watchers on Rockfin. That's awesome. Let's try and get those numbers up if we can. And there's also a ton of really awesome other content creators on Rockfin. Jimmy Dore, Kim Iverson, Graham Elwood, Convo Couch, Nico House, all kinds of really cool people to listen to. Electric car emissions myth busted. Okay, I'm just giving a little, trying to give a little nuance. Let's see what they have to say. Fears that electric cars could actually increase carbon emissions are a damaging myth. I'll read it in a really sarcastic tone. And that'll be fair, won't it? That'll be a nice balanced look at this. Media reports have questioned if electric cars are really greener once emissions from manufacture and electricity generation are counted. The research concluded that in most places, electric cars produce fewer emissions overall, even if generation still involves fossil fuels. Other studies warn that driving overall must be reduced to hit climate targets. Ding, ding, ding. Lifetime emissions. The researchers say average lifetime emissions from electric cars are up to 70% lower than petrol cars in countries like Sweden and France, where most electricity, well, okay. We're talking about that. And what's the lifetime of the car, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, I wonder who funded this study. Just curious. It may be totally unbiased and completely just non-slanted. They say the picture for electric cars will become steadily more favorable as nations shift to clean electricity. Study projects that in 2050, every second car on the street of the world could be electric. Well, that's a long time. 30 years from now, half the cars are electric. And how many cars on the street are there now? And what is half? What's the number to make half of all those cars be electric? And then what are the emissions to create half? Again, so if there's 100 million cars on the road and you got to build 50 million cars. What's the CO2 involved in building 50 million electric cars? Again, there's a lot more CO2 involved in the building of the cars. So that's still a heck of a lot of CO2. You really got to take that into account. And by the time we get there, how bad is the environment? How bad are we going to be? How bad is the environment going to be? How far down the road of climate change are we going to be? Again, if we're going to do anything at all, it's got to be a dead stop. It's got to be on a dime. So the best way to go, instead of building 50 million electric cars, might be to just take cars off the road or limit people's driving, encourage people to limit their driving, live hyper locally, hyper regionally, growing our own food, not driving to work, not flying in airplanes, that's for sure. Airplanes are going to have to go. Anyways, because there is no electric airplanes. There are none, have none, will not have any anytime soon. That doesn't mean the problem of cars in the environment is solved. First, it'll be hard to shift the car fleet to electric in time to meet the UK's 2050 climate goal. Again, 2050 is really far away, considering we need to get to net zero in 5 years. So, probably not going to be very helpful. And then you got to build all the charging stations. You got to build out all the infrastructure. All of that needs to be built. And there's more infrastructure, but it is still very limited. Third, abrasion of electric car tires and brakes still create pollution in cities. And what are those tires made of? Let me tell you. 50 million times 4 times all the oil that it takes to make those tires. You do the math. But anyways, so this is, maybe this report wasn't so bad. They actually were fairly balanced. They actually said, well, yeah, it depends on what the energy, where you use your car, your electric car, the energy that the car uses. It depends on all of that. And there still is a lot of CO2 involved and other kinds of pollution involved in making these cars, of course. Yes. Way to go. Let's look at this. Anybody hear about this anywhere? I didn't until here. There's actually a scandal around plug-in hybrids. Breaking. Plug-in hybrids in new emission scandal as tests show higher pollution than claimed. So they claim that the pollution is lower. Again, this is harking to the Volkswagen emission scandal. Remember, a few years ago, Volkswagen put out, built a bunch of cars and told everybody the emissions were, at some level, and it turned out that they were fudging the numbers and the emissions were way higher. And yeah. Three of the most popular plugins in 2020 all emitted more CO2 when tested in the real world, even when starting with a full battery. So, BMW official CO2 is here, or this is what they say the CO2 is, I guess. Here's the CO2 in electric mode. If you charge your battery, it's still more CO2. Apparently. Engine mode, way higher. And battery charging mode, way higher than that. Same for Volvo. Same for Mitsubishi. I wonder if it's true for Toyota, which is probably the most popular, one of the more popular hybrid cars, plug-in hybrid cars. But let's look at this. Article a little bit. Plug-in hybrids and new emission scandal as tests show higher pollution than claimed. I guess they're going to just tell us the same thing as those graphs told us. Sales of plug-in hybrid vehicles are skyrocketing in Europe, but tests on the newest models confirm they pollute the climate far more than car makers claim, even when starting with a full battery. And again, you have to build those cars, you have to build the batteries, you have to build the infrastructure for plugging them in. Even when 3 of the most popular plug-ins in 2020 all emitted more CO2 than advertised. When tested in the real world, just as research on older PHEVs has shown, has shown. Okay. So this is, I guess, there have been other studies and they have reached the same conclusion. So all of this is apparently well known to some people. This is from November 23rd. And the government should end the purchase subsidies and generous tax breaks for plug-in hybrids that are fueling another emissions scandal. Yeah. I mean, on some level, the emissions are far lower if you are using electric mode or whatever. Again, you have to, where's the energy coming from, et cetera, et cetera. The plug-in, the electric mode is basically, so I guess there's 2 batteries. One is, the car runs either on a battery or you can run it as a pure hybrid, which makes it extremely convenient, right? So you're not locked into a mileage, the end of your battery running out of juice. You can just switch over to your battery charging mode and keep on driving. While car makers blame customers for using the engine too much. Yeah, that's rich. You're just not using it right. I mean, there probably is a better way to use it, but that's hilarious that the car makers are going to blame the customers for using the cars improperly. The PHEV models on sale today often lack the necessary EV power, range, or charging speed. For example, 2 of the 3 cars tested, BMW X5 and Volvo XC60, cannot fast charge, and even the Outlander's manual states the engine may start if the PHEV system is too hot or too cold, if quick acceleration is applied, or if the air conditioning is operating. And golly gee, I know so many people that just leave their air conditioning on all the time because, they just live in boxes. Air conditioned boxes are the way to go. So I'm gonna guess that a majority of people who are driving these cars have their AC on, and so that's blowing whatever emissions they think they're saving out of the water. That is hilarious, though. The car makers blame the drivers for their high emissions. But the truth is that most PHEVs are just not well made. They have weak electric motors, big polluting engines, and usually can't fast charge. The only way plugins are going to have a future is if we completely overhaul how we reward them in the EU car CO2 tests and regulations. Yeah. Well, this is, scandal. Oh my gosh. Scandal meaning, something that people see and just shrug. You mean shrug-worthy? Most people are like, there's a scandal? Oh, you say my emissions are too high? Oh, golly gee, I'm really just so upset. All right, we got a few more viewers on Rockfin. Thanks, guys, for joining me on Rockfin, ROKFIN.com. I am here. I live stream my shows, the same exact show on YouTube and Rockfin every day at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, or daylight time, depending on what time of the year it is. See if we have got any more to cover today, as I have reached the end of my time. I've reached the end of my time, guys. I may or may not be back with another video today. But I will definitely be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'm going to read a couple of comments before I take off. Freedom Club LX says, oh, the irony, AC is a problem. Well, we do need it. It's getting hotter. Yeah, I mean, I know people that run AC, just their AC in their car when it's like beautiful outside. Just like roll the window down, enjoy the air. Salt Lakers, everyone's emissions will be higher in 2 days. Yes. Richard Monroe, I cut the floor out and walked the vehicle. Flintstone style, I love it. Truly the most environmentally friendly way to drive a car is like the Flintstones. Interglacial Optimist, cars make nice little greenhouses or cold storage to start your spring garden. Excellent. I like it. I see that. Yeah, a car would make a nice like little mini greenhouse. Sure. Creative Experiment says, delete your car from your life. You'll lose your friends and most likely your wife and kids, but save civilization. There we go. Thanks, Muzza. Appreciate the super chat. Thank you so much. Thank you all for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. I will be back tomorrow for sure at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Until next time, peace.